Good morning, Berlin. Good afternoon to our viewers in Asia. Welcome to day 4 of the AsiaBerlin Summit. Today we have a very special event with 3 experts of innovation hubs in India, Indonesia, and Hong Kong, Greater Bay Area. So you will hear insights about market entry, whether you're a startup or investor considering one of these 3 markets. And you will hear 3 quick pitch presentations and also a lively discussion with our experts and also AsiaBerlin ambassadors. And we are very honored to have our partner, Dr. Rainer Seider, the head of unit for international cooperation, join us with a warm welcome. So please, Rainer, join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you, enpact, for hosting this event today. As you told, we will have today one of the last big events of the summit. We had a great opening on Monday, great 2 days yesterday and before yesterday in the Spielfeld, and now there is the next highlight, and I'm very curious about the experiences we will get today from Hong Kong with Karena Belin, who is an ambassador, and with Daniel Tumewu from Jakarta, and finally Amrita from Bangalore, which are 3 big hubs we are exploring with AsiaBerlin, where we are connecting bridges between the startup ecosystem of Berlin towards these 3 cities and of course other cities in Asia. And I think the summit is a good opportunity to collect them all, and I'm very happy that Daniel came directly from Indonesia, from Jakarta to Berlin, who is one of the few visitors for the summit directly coming over from Asia to Berlin, and I'm very happy that he's here. Thank you, Daniel, for coming to us, but also thank you to Amrita and Karena to join our event today. So I'm very curious what we will know about these 3 hubs, what opportunities are there for the startup ecosystem of Berlin, how to join forces, how to cooperate and build bridges together. So I'm very curious, and I thank you again for joining us online in Asia and in Germany and Europe. So thank you very much. And I think I go hand over to Helena again.
Thank you. So our first pitch presentation is by Daniel, who, as Rainer said, just flew in from Indonesia, and we are very honored. And yeah, please join us, Daniel.
Are we? Yeah. All right. So good morning, everyone, and good afternoon, Asia. Especially hello to all my friends in Indonesia. Yeah, as Rainer just said, I luckily made it all the way from Indonesia here to Berlin. Also, I have to say it was quite a hassle. So I have been tested to COVID so many times, like never before in my life, and it was a hassle to travel here, but obviously worth the effort to connect with all these beautiful faces here in Berlin from the AsiaBerlin community. And I hope that this will be better again next year, that we can come together in person. Yeah, I will talk a bit about Indonesia today, about, from my point of view, the underdog here. When we look at our friends from Hong Kong, from India, where most of you might have had connections, might have had interests, Indonesia might still be a relatively new market to you, even though this should not stay like that, because there are lots of opportunities that we can explore. As you can see on the slide here, you can see we are located among the big neighbors, basically somehow in between our friends from India and Hong Kong and obviously mainland China. But Indonesia is a representative of ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, and is there the largest member country. And within the members of the ASEAN community, Indonesia is more or less half of it in terms of population and also GDP, so quite a sizable market for hopefully you in the future. I want to zoom in a bit to what Indonesia is about. Indonesia is about 17,000 islands and a population of more than 270 million people, currently rapidly growing. A lot of young, very digital savvy users and also potential customers, hopefully to your market. And I'd really like to invite you to join this AsiaBerlin community. As Rainer said, I'm one of the ambassadors for Indonesia. There's a couple of more, and there's obviously the larger network where we are doing projects in Indonesia, in Jakarta, the capital mainly, and also within the different ecosystems. So we did roadshows where we visit our friends in Bangalore, as an example, and we also did collaborations, or are actually doing collaborations with the city of Berlin. Yeah, zooming in a bit further, I'd like to show you a picture of something that might look to you more like, or that might look to you more like this, a bit science fiction, but you can actually find this in the third largest city of Indonesia, which is Bandung, and it's actually a government office. You might not think it is, but it is a government office. The reason why I'm showing this is that there's a lot of things happening now in the innovation ecosystem in Indonesia, and there are many opportunities, whether in the government, whether with the private industry, or whether with the startup ecosystem. Also, one of the things that I quickly want to show you, the governor of that state has almost 15 million followers on Instagram. If we compare this, for example, to our the dear German counterpart, there's a slight slight gap, I would say. The reason why I'm showing this is actually there's a lot of opportunities in the digital ecosystem. So one of the platforms that the government, for example, introduced is this one, where they invited a lot of basically users to give their suggestions to innovate together with the government. And to jump a bit, within just a few weeks, almost 6,000 active members have been on the platform and have given thousands of ideas and suggestions and comment, and spent like tons of, more than 600 man days in terms of time on a digital platform, really to innovate around how to build a better city, how to build a smarter city, and how to create a better healthcare, business, and environmental ecosystem in Indonesia. Yeah, and then I also want to introduce you, of course, to the capital, Jakarta. If you haven't been there, it's actually a very lively city that, from my point of view, at least in many ways, has similarities to Berlin. Like the former, I think, mayor here said once, like, Berlin is poor but sexy. I would say like Jakarta is poorer but even sexier, at least in terms of the opportunities. So you should really explore this. Jakarta can look like this, but then the truth is sometimes it also looks like this. And I'm not sure if you're seeing this. Sometimes it can also look like this. And sometimes even look like this when it's rainy season, at least. So what it means is, like, there are still a lot of challenges to be solved, but obviously it is challenges are also opportunities, right? So if you want to innovate, if you want to solve problems, then I think Jakarta is the place to be, because it has also produced a lot of success stories within the startup ecosystem. Currently it has 5 unicorns, really Indonesian unicorns, from the fintech industry, from mobility services, from e-commerce, and therefore really offers a lot of opportunities to scale. But at the same time, you can really go deep, and you can really go into niche markets. For example, the Instagram users that I mentioned, a lot of people are going into vertical brands and create really success stories with very small niche products. So there are a lot of opportunities, I would say, in Indonesia. Berlin has already realized that and brought a couple of delegations to Indonesia, and is now doing also a project between Jakarta and Berlin, which are 2 sister cities. and the topic is going to be around urban innovation. If you're interested, there's another webinar at the Indonesian Embassy Day today where you can find out more. That starts at 11 a.m. CET. Yeah, I think with that I would almost close. Maybe one last announcement. Indonesia is also going to be the partner country for next year's Hannover Messe, if it happens, obviously, if Corona doesn't bother us more than it already has. And also, if you're interested, then maybe this is a chance to explore Indonesia as well. If you have more questions, feel free to ask them in the Q&A now or reach out to me at daniel@asia.berlin. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Daniel. So Daniel will be available just in 20 minutes or so for the Q&A. And up next, we have Amrita Gandikota, our AsiaBerlin Ambassador in India. So she will share more about our activities there, but also why India is a great hub for startup innovation. And we pre-recorded this presentation in order to avoid any technical issues, but Amrita is here live, also joining for the Q&A. So please add your questions, and welcome, Amrita.
Good morning, everybody. Hello, my name is Amrita Gandikota. I represent AsiaBerlin in India, and I also represent the German-Indian Startup Exchange Program. And I'm very happy to be here today speaking at the AsiaBerlin Summit, even though it's online. And I'm here to share some perspectives about the Indian startup ecosystem for you. So before I delve further, I first would like to ask you, or rather tell you, maybe you would all agree with me on this, when I say that for startups to flourish or to succeed, scalability, cost optimization, and business agility are super crucial. So hold on to that thought, and now let's think about why would you even want to come to India or set up or collaborate in India. So let me give you 3 very obvious reasons of why you should explore India as your next business destination. Definitely for the huge market scale it promises you, definitely for the cost optimized resources and talent, and the fact that India is an open and a liberalized economy. So of course, apart from these 3 overarching topics, there are also quite a few intangible aspects which really support Indo-German collaborations or even international collaborations in general. To put a perspective on this, especially from the Indo-German angle, Germany has invested over $11 billion since between 2010 and 2018. And today in the Indian marketplace, there are over 600 German-Indian joint ventures. And the German companies in India play a key role in job creation by employing over 300,000 people. And of course, Germany is the 7th largest foreign investor into India, and definitely the first from EU. So apart from these, let me also give you some quick figures about India, like you see here on the slide. So in India, what is super interesting is India is one of the largest world's youth population with an average age group of 28.5 years. Apart from this, the mobile penetration, for example, in India is one of the highest with over 500 million mobile-first internet users, and this internet is also offered at one of the world's lowest prices as well. Now, let me tell you a little bit specifically about the startup ecosystem. India is the world's 3rd largest startup destination with over 32,000 active startups which experience more than 12 to 15% year-on-year growth. At the same time, there are 24 unicorns in India which create 60,000 jobs annually. So when we look at majority of these startups, or the ecosystem revolves around the tier 1 cities, which is Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, definitely Bangalore as well, because maybe some of you already know, it is also considered as the Silicon Valley of India, and it's also amongst the top 20 world startup destinations according to the Startup Genome Report. So apart from these factors, even though looking at these great figures, India is an emerging market and it experiences many challenges with respect to infrastructure, skilling, healthcare, and so on. And it's sometimes also referred to as a land of uncertainties. But to me, it is a land of opportunities where there are ample problems that need to be resolved, and there is an ample opportunity for collaboration and so on. And this is where initiatives such as AsiaBerlin come into play, because since the past 5 years, AsiaBerlin has been creating impact by connecting different, by filling this gap, by connecting different startup ecosystems such as Delhi, Bangalore, Singapore, Manila, Jakarta, Hong Kong, Shenzhen, Beijing, to provide a collaboration and a co-creation opportunity. So what is AsiaBerlin? This is basically a project funded by the Berlin Ministry of Economic Affairs and implemented by enpact, of course by partnering with various regional partners in every specific hub. So in India, it has been creating impact since 2016 with the regional support of Indo-German Chamber of Commerce and various other partners like you see here on the slide, such as Invest India, Karnataka Startup Cell, NASCOM, Your Story, Thai, Excavator, and not to forget the immense support of various corporate accelerators such as SAP Startup Studio and Bosch DNA. So it's been quite a fulfilling journey so far, and in the 5th year of AsiaBerlin, I'm very proud to say that AsiaBerlin has a direct representation in India with the support of the funder, the Berlin Ministry of Economic Affairs, and the implementer, enpact. And I should say this wouldn't have been possible without the support of all the ecosystem partners. So quickly briefing you about some of the other programs under AsiaBerlin, such as the female entrepreneurship between Berlin and India. This is a project funded by the PMZ and in cooperation with GIZ. The aim of this project is to create networks between women-led organizations between Berlin and India and conceptualizing programs through delegation trips between Delhi, Bangalore and Berlin. So the FEBI delegation from India to Germany is happening virtually as we speak now at the AsiaBerlin Summit between September 21st to September 25th. And the converse of this program will hopefully happen offline in the Q2 of next year, which is 2021. I would also like to quickly add about the Program Designers Lab, which is a capacity building program for women-led accelerator cohorts. And the program again happens in various modules across Berlin and India. And the kickoff of this module will be happening on the 25th of January 2021. One of the key success stories was What Three Words, who was part of our FEBI delegation last year. And today it's wonderful to know that they have a partnership with Tata Motors, which is the largest automobile manufacturer in India, and of course with a global presence. And What Three Words is supporting them with their very innovative location technology. Very quickly speaking about the Berlin-Bangalore soft landing program. So according to the Global Innovation Alliances, the Karnataka government set up a market access program for startups to expand and establish international partnerships. With 2 startups, GreenTech Aqua and Hard Skills, were part of this project. And to speak a little more about GreenTech Aqua, which is a clean tech water management solution from Berlin, they have been part of various of our programs, also joined the FEBI delegation and the delegations to Singapore and Jakarta. And today they have collaborations between India, Germany and Jakarta. And I should say this is a classic example of AsiaBerlin. Because it not only has a bilateral collaboration between Berlin and Bangalore, or Germany and India, but also brings in the multilateral perspective of having collaborations with other startup hubs as well. So all in all, as a conclusion, I would like to once again pitch to you India as an innovation hub, and I would urge you to explore India as your next business destination, especially for its open market, for its cost-optimized resources and talent, and definitely the great market scale it promises you. Of course, there are going to be challenges through your way, especially in terms of maybe finding the right partner or finding your initial steps, definitely the cultural barriers. But at the same time, we are here to support you. So for any questions, please feel free to reach out and we are happy to support you. So I thank enpact and AsiaBerlin for giving me this opportunity to speak here today, and it's been a lovely pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Amrita, for this insightful presentation. So Amrita is available in just 10 minutes for live Q&A. So please add your questions in the chat, whether it's Umbrella or Zoom. And now our final pitch presentation is by Karena Belin. She's the co-founder of WHub and AngelHub from Hong Kong, and she will also cover Greater Bay Area. So please welcome Karena.
Welcome to AsiaBerlin Summit. Welcome to the Innovation Hub panel. My name is Freya Choi, and I'm co-founder of WHub and AngelHub. I am also proud and honored to be an ambassador to the AsiaBerlin initiative. Two platforms, but both united under the same mission and belief that innovation and economic growth is driven by startups. WHub is the power connector, unleashing startups' full potential by connecting them to the resources they need and helping all stakeholders tap into the innovative power of the ecosystem, and with that elevating Hong Kong and the Greater Bay Area to the top ranks of ecosystems. AngelHub is Hong Kong's very first and only SFC-regulated equity crowdfunding platform for professional investors in growth stage startups scaling in Asia, with this democratizing access to fundraising. I'm here to talk about Hong Kong, why it's such a thriving startup ground, and I thought the best thing is to start to celebrate with all the success cases we have produced. I'm here to talk about Hong Kong and its thriving ecosystem, and I thought the best way to start is by celebrating the success cases. We have given birth to 9 unicorns. For a population of 7 million people, that brings us on the highest density of unicorns per capita. Also with SenseTime, we hold the record of having the highest valued AI company of the world being invented and headquartered here out of Hong Kong. TNG Wallet, one of our fintech unicorns, raised the highest Series A fintech round with $150 million. Last year was definitely a year for fintech in Hong Kong. The HKMA, one of our regulators, granted 8 virtual banking licenses, including to one of our homegrown fintech unicorns, WeLab. The SFC, another regulator, granted AngelHub the very first SFC crowdfunding license. And a third regulator, the insurance authorities, granted several virtual insurance licenses to startups here. And our FinTech Week festival was the very first international cross-border FinTech Week in the world. Even in other areas, be it AI or blockchain, acceleration programs have been launched here out of Hong Kong and have decided to be headquartered here in Hong Kong, including Zeroth AI and Helix, a hashgraph-based accelerator. Now, there are multiple reasons why Hong Kong is such a thriving ground for startups to grow and scale. I'll just go through a few. On the top, you can see definitely Hong Kong is Asia's premier financial center. And even globally, last year has overcome, in terms of IPO volume, the New York Stock Exchange, thanks to Alibaba's secondary listing. And this year is now valued higher than the London Stock Exchange. Infrastructure is critical in terms of hardware, for sure, and we have wonderful facilities such as Hong Kong Science and Technology Park, but also obviously from a tech perspective and access to the internet. The infrastructure is there, the penetration and the usage, with over 50,000 hotspots, highest internet peak connections, with over 200% of smartphone and mobile penetration, and over 96% of these using the internet daily and actively. With Western social media, Facebook, where over 80% of the population here is on Facebook, or the Chinese ones, for example, WeChat, you can get direct market feedback and validation in no time. access to funding, we have the highest density of high net worth individuals. And with AngelHub bridging an active angel investor community and institutional money, you'll have the full landscape of fundraising here available for you. Now, fundraising is one, having access to customers and really monetize your business model is the other one. And really not only in the fintech part where we have 75% of world's banks sitting here, but also in all other sectors, we have international and locally homegrown multinational corporations that are looking to collaborate with startups. The best way to describe Hong Kong is its diversity. It's certainly true in terms of sectors. So fintech, health tech, IoT, smart city are all focus areas and one of the fastest growing ones. But we also have sectors such as textile tech, property tech, edu tech, travel tech that you may not find in other places of the world. Diversity definitely holds true through the nationality of talent and founders. 1/3 of our unicorns were founded by foreigners. And that actually links also to the great access of national and international talent and the ease of doing business in English. Thanks to nice immigration laws, really also being able to attract and hold talent here. The regulators play an important role, particularly in some industries such as fintech. And here, once again, there is joint sandboxes from our several regulators and contact points to help really companies and startups accelerate and innovate in that space. And last but not least, very small but very strategically positioned. Now, when the airports open again, we're once again in a 5 hours flight radius of half of the world's population. And then arguably from a supply side, sitting next to Shenzhen and the Pearl River Delta, which is still the manufacturing powerhouse of the world. Now, talking about Shenzhen, Hong Kong, you will more and more hear about the concept of the Greater Bay Area. 11 cities that include Shenzhen, Hong Kong, and Macau. And these are all in a 1 hour commute radius. So just imagine you could put Silicon Valley, New York, and Las Vegas into one area. Now, there are still a lot of infrastructure and regulatory progress that will be coming through, but already as of today, we have produced many success cases in this GBA. Only if we look at the number of unicorns, 43 unicorns for this population of 70 million people in the Bay Area. If you compare that to India of 1.3 million, has given birth to around 30 unicorns. This is because obviously all the unicorn capturers, as we call them, are very active here. So if it comes to capital and fundraising support, be it the Sequoias, the Tencents, the Alibaba, are all active and present here in the region. And some of these startups you probably are very familiar with. DJI, it's probably one of the only examples where the market leader in consumer products is Chinese. And a wonderful example where Frank has developed his flight motors here in a university in Hong Kong and then set up the headquarters in Shenzhen. We talked about SenseTime. WeBank was the very first virtual bank part of the Tencent ecosystem. Now, talking about some success cases from Europe that really leveraged Hong Kong as their launchpad to scale big here in Asia. One is KYC, Know Your Customer, bringing AML and KYC into the 21st century with a full automation. They decided to bring their amazing team of financial services experts from Ireland here to Hong Kong and have not only acquired multiple blue chip companies as their customers, but also leveraged AngelHub to fundraise. Another wonderful example, Soundrunner from Germany, with offices in Berlin, is now headquartered here in Hong Kong. It's the very first smart wearable device, mainly for musicians. And if you ask Florian, the founder, why did you come to Hong Kong and not, for example, looked into the West? He said, you know what, we tested it out. What would have taken us 3 months in Silicon Valley did only take us 3 weeks here in Hong Kong and Shenzhen in terms of manufacturing. And they have also incubated one of the world's leading IoT accelerator headquartered here in Hong Kong, Brink. So for you, what's next? Get connected, get more information, get in touch. You can do that by a tip with your finger and download all the white papers that we have for free. Obviously, please subscribe to our newsletter so you stay in the know and never hesitate to reach out to me directly. Thank you very much.
All right, so thank you so much to our three experts and AsiaBerlin ambassadors. So we start from Berlin with a live Q&A, and please also add your questions. I can read them right here. So Daniel, how can a German entrepreneur do business in Jakarta?
Yeah, good question. So there is obviously a way to incorporate in Indonesia, but as a foreigner or as a foreign-owned company, you have to go through a process, right? And you have to get a license from the investment coordinating board, where you have to apply, and based on the so-called negative investment list, there are certain sectors that are not allowed or not allowed as a majority to invest into, so you really need to check that up front. Again, if anyone is interested, can reach out to me, and then I can obviously share some consultants that may help, or some law offices that are in place. But basically the idea is that you need to check whether your sector is open for you to invest in and do your business in. But I'd also would say, like, if there's a will, there's a way. So it's actually possible to do business, and yeah, since the prospects are good, it's something that people should consider.
Great. And the next step would be to ask about what is the investment landscape in Indonesia?
Yeah, also a good question. So I would say because of the success stories of the unicorns I mentioned before, and also some success stories in the ecosystem in general, there's a growing interest for startup investors, also locally, which was tough the last few years, but it got better, so that even like large companies, whether it's state-owned companies, big conglomerates, they all now have their own family offices, investment arms, and so on. So there is money in the market. There's also a growing interest from foreign investors. I would say still not enough from Germany and Europe. But there's a lot of interest from countries like Korea, like Japan, like China, obviously. So that is a growing trend that we can see. And there are ways to directly invest. It's also, I didn't mention that before, but if you look at the map, Indonesia, and especially Jakarta, is relatively close to Singapore. So there's obviously also an existing ecosystem where you can do your investments either in Indonesia or in the region.
Thank you, Daniel. And you mentioned China, and we have our AsiaBerlin Ambassador Martin here in Berlin, who actually lived in China for many years. And so Martin, want to introduce yourself a bit and maybe ask another question to Daniel?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm still very excited that we actually have this AsiaBerlin Summit rolling off in this hybrid form right now. So we have you all there, and the last 2-3 days we actually have been on site, seeing like this wonderful people coming together. So to Indonesia, I would like to, or a thing that always interests me is what are the major pain points that you see that foreign companies can actually help in Indonesia, like startups with certain ideas, like which directions do you see?
There's actually, I mean, obviously a lot of possibilities in a large country with a large customer base. So basically all kinds of consumer related products may have a market in Indonesia. It's also a very tech savvy and trend savvy population. So that leaves a lot of opportunities for, localizing products, for textile, for other trend products. So I would say that's one of the things. Then in terms of technology, the country is really trying to upgrade, especially digitalize, not just in consumer technology, but basically in all other segments as well. So that leaves opportunities in urban tech and some other markets. And finally, I would also say Indonesia as a large country, as an island country, as a maritime country, there are a lot of environmental issues and challenges. So the whole topic of waste management, circular economy, that is a huge topic. But also leaves opportunities, I think.
I think especially for Berliner startups, because that's what we have seen actually over the last couple of days on the summit. At least one of my takeaways was really that the impact idea, the social impact, the world impact basically is something that is so much in the foreground of Berlin startups. Yeah, thank you very much. Do we have other questions from
Yes.
people online?
Yes, so a question for Amrita from in India. So our viewer would like to know more about the support for women founders and which sectors are they supported exactly?
So firstly, what I would like to say a few words about the Phoebe project, which is the female entrepreneurship in Belin and India. So here, of course, we are right now for this program, we already have the women founders from India to Germany participating, like I mentioned, also in the margins of the AsiaBerlin Summit. And the typical tech, the sectors would be around deep tech, IoT, mobility, also smart city solutions. At the same time, if you are interested, there is also, I mean, I don't know which field are you particularly coming from. There's also the Program Designers Lab, and in case you're associated with other accelerators or from an accelerator perspective, that's also something you could apply so that you can empower further women founders. And within the Indian ecosystem, of course, there is immense support offered by NSR Cell. They have a very focused women program. There's also the Thai Women chapter, which who do a lot of capacity building engagements. And from the Telangana, Hyderabad area, there's the WHub, who also are into sustainability and much more early stage startups, especially if you want to reach out for scalability. So there is definitely a support from both the sides. And if you have any questions, I will put down my email ID. You could write to me in specific. Thanks.
Thank you, Amrita. Great insights, as always. I would like to ask one more question to Daniel, and that is about a project that has just recently been won by the Berlin Senate. It's called Smart Change, and you are heavily involved in the Indonesian side, so do you want to introduce a little bit?
Yeah, thank you, Martin. So I think, in a nutshell, so what the program is about is basically it is a collaboration between sister cities. I briefly mentioned that in my talk before, but what it is actually about is about bringing the two ecosystems together on a smart city level as well as on an entrepreneurship level. So there will be multiple ways how to interact with the ecosystem, and especially if you're interested in getting in touch with the market, prototyping a solution with the market, that might be a way, because there will be basically a physical presence for you to connect to mentors. There will be an accelerator program. There will be exchange with governments. There will be corporate challenges and many other things. So watch out for that. Again, if you're interested, reach out to me or join the Indonesian Embassy webinar later today.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Daniel. I hear you have to run to leave.
Yeah, traveling in the new normal, I have to take another COVID test.
Oh yeah, wow. That must be tough. You just came in on the weekend and now you're already going back. So we wish you all well.
Yeah, thank
and
you.
Have a good flight. Stay healthy.
Thank you for joining us.
See you around.
Thank you. And with that, we can actually ask another guest that has recently joined us here in the studio to come up. Miss Freya Choi, can I ask you to come here? So Freya is a newly decorated ambassador in the AsiaBerlin Circle from Korea.
Yeah, sure.
Would you like to introduce you a little bit?
I'm Freya, from Korea. So now I'm working for Pacemakers, which is the Korean accelerator, based in Seoul. So thank you for me here.
Great, wonderful to have you. What does Pacemakers do exactly?
We are basically a support for startups, and we helping for them to go to the global market. So first, we helping for Korean startups to go to the global market, and then also we are considering to helping for foreigners to set up their business in Korea.
Mm-hmm.
So we now having a programs, an HG program, so called. So it's for Korean startups to go to the German market and also Indonesia market.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and then also we have a many related with the government, and then now we are making many programs and projects with the governments under their activities.
Umbrella,
yeah, the umbrella.
Oh, interesting. So what would you say is kind of like the edge of the Korean startup market? Like if you would use a couple of sentences to describe startups in Korea, what would you say?
Okay, so I can say fast, and they respond quickly, and they are very ambitious, and also there are many support from the government, and that's so techy. So it's a Korean customers or Korean users, they really easily get adapt. So from the new technology and then also new idea, and also they like to share this to their friends. So I think it's a good first aspect for startups.
Interesting. So the Korean market, as far as I know, is very much, let's say, a market in itself also, like because of the language barrier that is there.
Yeah.
Are there any steps now to kind of like overgo that? Maybe there are some government directions?
Yeah, basically Korea, so we are more like local focused. So a few years ago, but that was changed. So a few years ago already, so many government programs towards the global market. And then also we have launched called Seoul Global Startup Center. This is for the foreigners. So when they want to come to Korea for building their business, then that center can help them. And also we have a K Global Challenge. Also that is an accelerating program for foreigners to set up their business in Korea.
I see. Interesting. So maybe are there any questions for Karena maybe?
Yes. So Karena, welcome. Thanks for joining now live. So you shared really amazing insights in your presentation, and I was just wondering for entrepreneurs who are considering Hong Kong, what types of resources of advice, like top 3 steps would you suggest for them if they're just considering Hong Kong?
Right, thank you, Elena. Thank you, Martin, and welcome Freya actually to the community, and welcome everybody. Welcome everybody online. Just before I answer your question, I want to make one disclaimer, because listening to my presentation, it sounded like I was like really competitive in terms of Hong Kong comparing to Bangalore, etc. The thing is, for startups, it's not either or, right? So startups are meant to go global. It's always and. It's a typical question when I get asked, rather Singapore or Hong Kong. I tell people, it's going to have to be both, and Bangalore, and Jakarta, and you probably just want to understand where do you want to go first, and that really depends on your startup, that depends on your stage, the technology, the potential connections you already have, right? So again, Amrita, right? So I just give this example of 43 unicorns for 70 million people, because size matters in two aspects, right? If you're early stage or if you're expanding into the Asian market and you have to validate your product market fit, actually being super small and dense, or like, for example, in India, right? Knowing that you first want to go to Delhi or first to Mumbai or first to Bangalore really matters. And then the good news is even out of a small place like Hong Kong or the Greater Bay Area, you can still scale the companies to unicorn status, right? To really big size. So back to your questions, right? So what do you do? So I'm gonna put some shameful plugs in the sense that the mission of our company is helping, startups grow and scale and soft land. So one of the things you can do is really, download our white papers. They're for free, right? You download them and you get connected to the internet, to the market landscape here, or also go on WHub.io and scroll through the 3,500 startups on the platform. Look what they're doing. Maybe, some of your business models are already operating in the space. The second thing is then, you can also go on the Hong Kong government website. So again, Hong Kong government is one of the governments like totally digitized. So I can put the link into the chat. It's govhongkong.org, and you have everything there. You can incorporate your company right after this talk out of your living room by a click. You don't have to be physically here in Hong Kong to incorporate your company in Hong Kong, right? Bank account's a little bit more difficult. It's a little bit more difficult, but again, a lot of fintech companies actually now provide even that, problem. And I mentioned it, 8 virtual banking license. So, Mox is already live, WeLab Bank is right. So they're going to make it easier for you even, to solve the problem of having even, a bank account here in Hong Kong. And I think the third thing is just do it, just connect. So the thing is, you can connect people on WHub, but you can also, on our white papers, we have a whole section of community builders, right? And with their LinkedIn address, and reach out. Already pre-COVID, if you ask somebody for a business meeting here in Hong Kong, and I think it's very Asian, I know it from Hong Kong, in 2/3 or even more of the cases, people will say yes. Everybody is very pragmatic. And with that, I would argue the only watch out is if you come here, you have the impression that everybody is a startup expert, because people are super curious and interested and pragmatic and opportunistic, and they will tell you, yeah, I can connect you. And arguably, in half a degree of separation with anybody here in Hong Kong, they probably can. But I think just do your due diligence. And then again, our community builder section is a good place to start. You reach out to these people, they connect you, and it really goes in no time. I think particularly, from people calling in from overseas, from non-locals, non-Hong Kongese, it's such a business-friendly environment that the main language is English. And again, there is a possibility 1/3 of our, just again, to use the unicorns as an example, 1/3 of these founders are not from Hong Kong. Show me a country, right, where even as a foreign founder, you can come into the market and scale a company. And even us, as the startup community platform in Hong Kong, we're only here since, the past 9 years, but it's because it's very open, and it's networking is really in the DNA of people. So I think these are the 3 tips, do your research, go also on the government website, and then just do it, reach out, connect.
I love the supportive aspect of the ecosystem. It's really a lot of resources available. And I'm wondering also if you could share a bit more about the crowdfunding platform. So we're always curious about how entrepreneurs can raise more money for their companies. So can you please share a bit more about that?
Sure, with pleasure. And I was just thinking, I think with a lot of what I just described about Hong Kong is probably similar to Berlin, right? I think a lot of stuff is done in Berlin also in English, right? And really this melting pot of East and West, particularly in Europe, is definitely holds true. So AngelHub was really, everything what we do on WHub, our hashtag is startup passion, right? Even comes out of our passion for startups and helping the ecosystem accelerate. And arguably AngelHub was really also born out of that pain point that we personally felt on making a change in the fundraising landscape. It's still too complicated. It's still too time intense, for founders here to raise. And particularly, so 80% of our focus area is in the pre-AA. So if you're raising anything between $500,000 to 1.5 million, and you're scaling in Asia, so you don't have to be incorporated here, you don't have to be headquartered here to raise. I mean, I mentioned KYC as an example. There are other examples: a Singaporean Industry 4.0 company, a fast fashion tech company from Thailand. I mean, right now we have an Israeli edutech company on the platform that is scaling in Asia. It's possible. So come and reach out. The thing is, just a little bit of a disclaimer on our positioning. We're not crowds. We're not retail. We're not like Crowdcube or Seedstar. We're not crowd because on the one hand side, we're only for professional investors. Okay, so a minimum ticket size for all investors listening is 10,000 US. But also, again, from the startup side, we're really highly vetted. And one of the reasons is because we have a fund alongside that invests. So we also, align obviously our interests with the startups because they're the ones who are going to grow the business, but we're fully aligning our interests with the investors as well. So we highly vet them to then put our own money and help them afterwards, accelerate through AngelHub, but also through the WHub overall network. And the interesting thing is for companies from Germany that are a little bit later stage, 20% of our deal flow is actually Series C and beyond. That's also a little bit because we have this mission of democratizing access to startup investing. So some of the investors are arguably probably over proportionately maybe here in Asia are still relatively risk averse. So they would feel more comfortable on, Series C's and closer to what people are used here in Hong Kong, pre-IPO, IPO. So again, if you're in that stage, nevertheless, please reach out. So we did invest into one of our fintech unicorns here in Hong Kong, and we did also invest into a company Series C stage in Thailand. So please come. It's again angelhub.io. I always say it's more sexy and cheaper than .com. And then just fill out, apply, fill out a first onboarding questionnaire, and we'll be super quickly in touch with you. And again, our promise is we're here to save you time. So if we don't think we have the right investor base for you, we'll let you know straight away.
Thank you, Karena. There's one more question from a viewer here. It's pretty general, but how can a startup insure itself against disruptions in Hong Kong? I'm assuming it's maybe political landscape.
Against disruption. I was going to say if it's against disruption or being out innovated. I mean, that's the same like everywhere else in the world, just be faster and better. In terms of disruption. So again, typically in the past, I had to explain one country, two systems. I thought the fact that we were on the cover page of each and every newspaper out there would have done the job to say that we are one country, but two systems. So we're based on the rule of law. We have one of the highest IP protection, one of the highest investor and minority investor protection laws in the world. So again, Hong Kong always ranks in the top 10, top 5, or top 3 of, ease of doing business, safety of doing business. Again, I mean, hats down to all newspapers who have to talk about the bad stuff to sell. I always, in the worst days of Hong Kong, I always felt safer than on any other day I lived in Paris. So whatever people would tell you that Hong Kong is not safe, it's less safe than it used to be in the past, but it's still one of the safest places on earth. So yes, and again, I mean, if it was all about, copyright protection, trademark protection, no worries. With that, we have our own laws that are really, really strict and used to what you're used from in the West.
Thank you so much, Karena.
Wonderful. Yeah, I actually have a question to Amrita. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit in a tiny couple of questions about the investor landscape that you see in India? Obviously, it's a big country with a lot of hubs, so maybe there's a focus that you can take out.
Thanks for the question. Yes, I think it's super relevant. So especially from the investor perspective, so from my experience with whatever delegations we've been through, or international startups, especially from Germany coming into India, or Berlin coming into India, the focus to come to India was predominantly not for investment. Usually startups are coming to India for the scale or predominantly for the scale or to get a cost optimized resources to set up their subsidiary in India or to engage IT skills and so on. But at the same time, speaking specifically from an investment perspective, it's usually easier if the company is also set up in India, and the usual ticket sizes, especially for pre-series or pre-seed, are around $100,000 US going up to 500,000, and the maximum would be for Series B, and that would be around 25 to 30 million US dollars, whereas the valuation should be around 75 million US dollars. So that's usually the setup. And of course, there are quite a few local investment agencies, and lately, like how Daniel was also mentioning, there has also been quite a lot of international counterparts who've set up in India as venture capitalists to support the local ecosystem. So it is definitely a space which is busting more with potential resources, which local startups and definitely also international startups also can tap into. But I think it would make it more relevant if they're also set up in India to have a direct relevance. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Big country, big problems, big money.
Definitely. The last part is.
Yeah.
But also big opportunities.
Big opportunities. And hopefully big startups. Good, great. One more question to Korea. Could you give an example for, let's say, a small hub or like a city project that has been happening in Korea lately, where we can see a little bit how the traction is?
Oh yeah, so I can tell. So one is as you know the Incheon because of the Incheon airport. And then so they also concentrate on.
For everybody who doesn't know, when you fly to Seoul, you fly to the Incheon airport. So.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, so the Incheon also they focus on fostering startup. So they also built a startup park. So it's a really huge and a big building. And then so they also work with the Incheon government and also Incheon airport and the economic region, so the people, when they come to Incheon, then they can get the benefit for the tax-free. Yeah, so maybe also the foreigners, when they come to Korea, that they can build their own business or brands in Incheon, then they can get this benefit. And also in this startup park, also, so two big companies will be there. And then one is Zaltrion, is a big pharmaceutical company in Korea. Also, they had get good advantages is under COVID-19 situation. And then also the other one is Shinhan Bank. Also, so they really like one of the biggest bank in Korea. And then they also put their effort on the startups. So they will invest their money. And then Shinhan Bank, they announced that so they will fostering the startups to make them unicorn.
Interesting. Yeah, biotech is actually a very big theme in Korea, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, it's a really big, and then there are many government money in there.
So, any biotech startup out there, Korea is your place.
Yeah.
One of the viewers is actually asking how can they get in touch with you and explore collaboration?
You can find me. It's my company website is called Pacemakers. So pacemakers.kr, and also you can find me on LinkedIn. So Freya Choi.
Very cool. So, any thoughts, Amrita or Karena, that you have? Something that really is in your heart you want to share that we didn't ask yet?
I actually just wanted to build on what Freya said. You know, whenever I go to Korea, I'm super impressed by the technical advancement and detail of the Korean companies. So again, actually, we did just for our own conference, we did a global startup competition and a tour where we went into different countries, Berlin as well, which had amazing startups as well. But again, in Korea, actually, I always felt like I would have had an expert in each of the fields next to me to vet the companies, because the technical advancement was really impressive. So I think always love to be back in Seoul soon.
Thank you.
And Amrita?
Yeah. So from my side, I think it was a great experience also to get insights from the other ecosystems as well. And one thing I would like to say, I mean, maybe add, I completely agree with what Karena also mentioned before, because it's always and not really or. I mean, that's a great takeaway from me as well. And I think also for Indian startups, because usually there's not really a tendency of a born global ideology for startups. It's because the market is already so large that you would want to really focus on building within the country. But nowadays the trend seems to be changing, and with platforms like this, I mean, especially to build awareness with so many different counterparts, I think that sensitivity develops even among startups to expand and create more ands than ors. So yeah, that's very great. I'm very happy to be here and for the opportunity. Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's actually true. I just want to build on one more thing. And I think that's why, the Asia Berlin initiative is really impressive, because even through that, the ambassador itself started talking and, pointing out some missing bridges even between, Asian countries to make it easier for startups to go from Bangalore to Hong Kong, to Shenzhen, to Jakarta, Singapore, whatever, right? And I think that's the power of the Asia Berlin network, because you basically get to speak to all of Asia in one organization. And then, yeah, just understand what is your best scaling kind of like cycle. Where do you go first? Where do you go next? So that's brilliant. And I just wanted to add one thing, because, talking about competition, so Daniel mentioned about poor and sexy, poor and sexy. Okay, so for some parts, so it's true. For some parts, arguably in Hong Kong, we're relatively rich, but I wanted to say we're still super sexy. Okay, you can be rich and sexy as well. So of course, consider coming to Hong Kong as well.
Wonderful. Yeah, let me just knock on the point that Karina had just before that one. So the Asia Berlin community that we are building here is, of course, super open and welcome to anybody new out there. We really love to talking to people, to bring new people into the network. Anybody can be part of the network. You don't need to sign up for something. Just come to our events, meet the people in the network, see how we grow the network as a platform. And please really do connect, especially if you see things that have not yet really been addressed. Like there are countries in Asia that we are well underrepresented, and we love to connect to people who would like to help out on that side.
Great. And speaking about connectivity, and I know that we cannot predict the future, but Karena, Amrita, Freya, if you were just to look 5 years ahead, and now with the world being more digitized as ever, and this is the new normal situation that may be for a while now, how can you support, or like, do you have any advice or ideas of supporting the startups in this new time now?
Who likes to jump in?
I can go first. I mean, arguably, I think there is no more excuse now, in the sense that before you could say I don't have time to travel, I don't have money to travel. I mean, now being so digitally connected, and again, Asia Berlin Summit is just a wonderful example. I'm not sure how many countries are calling in right now. Again, just from our own experience, we also run a big conference, and we used to do that offline. We went for the first time online. and we had 97 countries dialing in. And I think these are connections.
It was great, by the way. I was there. It was
because
awesome.
we had amazing speakers like Martin as well, and Mali was there as well. I remember. No, the point is, I think obviously, you know, at a given point in time, you need to be physically on the ground. But I think you can already be way more connected and way closer. I think the biggest kind of like worry that I have right now is with this East and West and US, China, etc. I mean, this polarization. I mean, obviously the tech world thrives when data flows and when there are no limits and frontiers. So, I mean, the global internet was a blessing. We'll hope that, you know, that doesn't end up in a splinternet or so. But I think, again, even it's up to us as entrepreneurs to always leverage this as an opportunity to innovate. So that's a little bit my forward-looking worries and also hopes and encouragement to everyone.
Thank you, Karena.
Well said.
From my side in India, I think it was mentioned on the opening day of the AsiaBerlin Summit. I think even I'm not a big fan of the word social distancing, because I think we are actually much more connected, even, you know, in terms of virtual teams and so on, because now it's become more and more mandatory to maintain the connect as much as possible. But yeah, of course, the physical disconnect is there. But I think, you know, one cannot give excuses anymore, and one needs to really at least try and begin at some point, because of course it might not be a super perfect idea the first time, but you know, one needs to really hone it. And to be honest, again speaking from an Indian market space as well, in many ways it has saved resources, saved cost. It was much more greener, leaner. So from that perspective, the lockdown or the post-corona effects have been in a way beneficial, if I can say so. But on the other hand, yes, it cannot completely go like this, to the fact that we don't have an option. It's good to have a choice to make these decisions, and definitely also have a much more open grounds to physically and actually be there and engage as well. And since also from a startup perspective from India, I think it didn't, from a daily operations perspective, it didn't drastically hit, because the companies were already, I think one thing India, it's very specific to India and some other emerging markets as well, is that, you know, the acceptance of uncertainty. So these kind of uncertainties were, I would say, much more easily accepted and maneuvered, as opposed to some more, much more set spaces. So here it took maybe a month or so, but then people were back to businesses and try to engage and, you know, try to get better as much as possible. Of course, it differs in different sectors, but from a startup space, this was very much true, and things are going, and one needs to make an effort for sure. Yeah.
Awesome. And Freya?
Yeah, it's so first of all, I'm really appreciate for the AsiaBerlin Summit. So because so with this experience and this opportunity, it bring me also real business to do. So I told you before, so we got the program, edge program for Korean startup to go to the global, and actually it was started from here.
Wow.
Yeah, so I got this opportunity to connect the enpact. And then the enpact is our partner company, and then so we are working together, and then enpact help us to go further in global market. And thank you, thank you first. Yeah, so in terms of the Korean startups, so we are really so many things going on there. So we can find like over 100 or even like 200 startup programs is there, and every time so you can find that program. So you need to focus on like what kind of programs fit us, and also yeah. So as I told you, like there are many government programs, and then Korean investors they are really eye opens, and then they have so open mind, and then, so it's easier to get the sense of the change and then their activity. So if you are in the community, and then they are really welcomed for you.
Well, so thank you for the positive outlook, and so definitely outtakes the connectivity is a big aspect, using the resources that AsiaBerlin provides. Please contact us and also the speakers. We will share their information. And so we heard perspectives from Hong Kong, from India, from Indonesia, from South Korea. And Martin, if I may, can you share a bit about Berlin perspective as you're based here right now?
About connectiveness or in general?
Yeah, just your outlook on the next 5 years and how can we best support startups? Is anything changing? Maybe more our digitized programs or any other aspects?
Right, so first of all, if you look holistically on the Berlin startup ecosystem, I think there are a couple of things that you can filter out and that you can use to characterize the ecosystem. So one of it is definitely the impact component that lots of startups here have. And that is not only towards the environment, but there are also a lot of startups that have a focus on social impact. And I think this is something that we now, during COVID, need more than ever. Since we are all now sitting, in our own living rooms and trying to connect on digital ways, there are lots of solutions coming out of Berlin. Besides that, I see the future of the Berlin startup market, of course, not only in the impact sector, but there will always be an impact component in there, which is something that a lot of entrepreneurs in Berlin have the spirit basically inside, and the city drives for it. The city is kind of like built this way, right? It's this poor and sexy kind of like, we were the first one who used that term. So it's not all perfect, and we don't have the biggest money in the world. We don't have the biggest unicorns in the world. But Berlin is definitely a place that is very welcoming for people who like to connect, who like to build, who like to share. And under that spirit, we can, for example, see a lot of sub-communities for or subcultures, basically, or communities for subcultures here that you can also connect to. And that is basically the building ground, the breeding ground for startups and ideas to pop up. And in the next 5 years, we're going to see a lot more of that, with hopefully more and more investment pouring in. If we look at the past 5 years, we can see a steady growth in international investment. Now with the Brexit coming in, that has probably also accelerated a little bit. Now, of course, COVID damped it a little bit down, but we see basically a very bright future for Berlin in the global startup market.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for these insights, and we will be in touch, and please reach out to us also, asia.berlin or at enpact, and we're happy to help, and now we're more than ever about sharing the resources and connecting, so please keep in touch, and thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Karena and Amrita and Daniel and Freya and Martin.
Thank you, Elena, for being the greatest host ever.
And thank you so much to Isaac, 1 Minute Video, our support at all videography services. And thank you very much. Enjoy AsiaBerlin Summit today.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.